Hey everyone, happy March. Would you give me a thumbs up to let me know that you can hear me okay? I've been having a few technical issues this morning, so if you could let me know. Hi Nancy, hi Liz, hi Pamela, Nancy, another Nancy. No, that's the same Nancy. Okay, Mary, Diana from rainy San Diego. Wow, that's pretty unusual for San Diego. So, hope everything is going well. We'll give everybody a couple of minutes to get in. Um, if you could let me know whether you can hear me or not. Just say yes or whatever. I just want to be sure I've got everything squared away here. Everything here in Connecticut is good. It's nice. It feels like spring. So that's a good thing. And hopefully all of my cameras will work. Everything was working great before. Oh, okay. All right, Pamela. Thank you. It sounds good. All right. Thanks. That's good to know. Well, while people are coming in, okay. Thanks, Mary. Um, from Dallas, Fort Worth. Hello, Michigan. We've got people from all over the place today coming in. I did hit the record button, so yay, that's done. Again, just a few little housekeeping notes. As you know, I am a Bernina ambassador. I don't work for them. But if you are thinking about, oh, thanks, Carol. Yeah, I'm looking forward to coming to Aurora too. That's going to be, I've done a couple of events up there, as you know. And hi, Gypsy. Scott and Alyssa are fantastic. They have a great staff, Aurora Sewing, 3 locations, all wonderful. So, but getting back to this, if you are thinking about purchasing a new Bernina or Burnett machine or software, any purchase over $1,000, before you make the purchase, let me know and I will send you an ambassador coupon. This is a $100 thank you rebate from Bernina of America. It's only good for the US customers. And it is a $100 check, so it's not like a gift certificate for more merchandise or anything else. But let me know. I will send this to you. Just shoot me an email, send me your mailing address, and I will get it in the mail to you right away. Oh, Angie, hey! Yay, thanks. Hope everything's good in Arizona. Hi, JK, Maureen. Yay, we've got a lot of people in here. So that's great. Well, just I'll give everybody another minute or so. But what we're going to do today is talk about beading on the serger, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this. And this request for this technique came from one of my viewers, Teresa. She emails me with different questions now and then, and she had seen this technique in the Big Book of Serging. And she said, could I please do a demo on it? And this is on, I use my fabric as a bookmark. Let me put this over here. This is from page 162, and it's on beadings and sequins, just right here. And so we will cover this today. I'm going to put this off to the side. The Big Book of Serging is a wonderful resource. They've got a ton of good information in it. A lot of it is very basic, kind of helping you get to know your machine, the stitches, what your machine can do. And then they have a second one that came out a couple of years ago when the L890QE came out. And that's the Big Book of Serger Quilting. And even if you're not a quilter, there is a lot of eye candy in that particular one. That one kind of goes a little bit deeper than the first book, the Big Book of Serging. It goes into a lot more decorative techniques. It's got great photography in it, so I highly recommend that. So I'm going to put this off to the side, get it out of the way. So We are going to talk about the beading foot, and no matter what brand of, well, I shouldn't say no matter, most brands of machines do have a beading foot because it's really nice to use the beading foot to attach beads on the edge, say on a cuff or the hem of a dress or a jacket, anything like that that you can do with a rolled hem. Now, I am going to show you a close-up of the beading foot and show you how it works. Oh, Helen says it's spring in Montana too. Helen, I have a feeling in Montana it can be kind of changeable, just like in Connecticut. Even though it's lovely today, we could be snowing by the end of the week, so who knows. But and I bet it's the same thing in Montana. But we'll enjoy the warm, mild weather while we have it. Okay, so I am going to switch over to my table camera to show you a close-up of the beading foot and talk to you a little bit about it. But before I do, there are a couple of things. Different machines with beading feet have maximum size beads that you can use. So definitely check either your owner's manual if it has that information in it about the beading foot, or oftentimes when you purchase it in the packaging it comes in, it will tell you what the maximum size of bead is that you can use. On the Bernina, the C15 foot, which is the beading foot, they say the maximum size of bead is 6 millimeters. I did try 6 millimeter pearls in it, and they do slide through. There's no problem with that. However, I found that I couldn't quite get the stitch length long enough to eliminate the puckering on the fabric. So, and it might be me. I am the first one to say that. I've got to play with it a little more. In all truth, I only played with it for a few minutes. And because the fabric was puckering, I decided to move on to a smaller bead. But I will pursue that and see if I can get a good result. And if I do, I will report back to you post haste. So let's switch over to the table camera so that we can take a close-up look at the beading foot. Okay, so here it is, and I'm going to move my chair over a little bit and hopefully talk a little bit louder. I'm going to move everything in a little bit closer to me. This is the beading foot. Beading feet on most machines look very similar to this, and there are beading feet for your sewing machine too. And in my description of what we were going to do today on Instagram and Facebook, it said I was going to demo beading on my sewing machine, which I am not going to do because it would involve way too much switching of camera positions and all of that stuff. But I'll talk about that a little bit more as well. So this side, the right side of the beading foot, it has a channel. It's almost like a little gutter on a bowling alley. Hi, Diane, from down East Maine. Yay. Lobster country. And this is where your beads are going to go. And let me just show you the back of the foot as well. So right here is where the beads are going to slide through as you're stitching. And this is why with both the width of this channel as well as the tunnel on the back of it, there is a maximum width. And when you test this, I would always make sure the beads slide through without any resistance whatsoever. You want to make sure that they can travel freely right through the foot. In fact, when I went and bought those 6 millimeter pearl, the string of pearls at the store, I brought my presser foot with me simply because some packaging on the strung beads doesn't necessarily give you the size of the bead. So I thought the safest way to know whether or not it was going to be too big for the foot or not was to take it with me, test it in the store, and that way I wouldn't come home with something that I couldn't use or return. Diane, thank you for those 3 little lobsters. Yes, that's great. I love Maine lobsters. There's a place that we stopped on the way home. That's right in what's the place? What's the town with all of the outlets? There's a great little lobster shack there where you eat outside. But anyway, getting back to this. Let me go back to this again. So this is the way this works, and you want it to slide along. And when you're doing your beading, I always either like to cut extra length or leave the reel in my trim bin, and you'll see that when I go to the machine. But you need to take a few stitches on the strand of beads first before you go onto your fabric, and that just kind of secures it and allows you to get the fabric going underneath it. And we are going to use a 3-thread Flatlock, and this is a sample that I did. Now, I will say that I used a very lightweight thread. I used a 100 weight Invisifil, and in fact, you can barely see it up close. This is it. It's even a little bit lighter than bobbin thread. But the weight of the thread that you use is important, because if you're going to do flat locking on the surface of a garment or other project, you want that stitching to be as discreet and invisible as possible. Now, before we start, I do want to say, if I were doing beading on the surface of a garment or a pillow or something like that, would flat locking be my first choice for attaching the beads? No. I would probably go to my sewing machine and zigzag them on, because I can get a narrower zigzag, and there's less thread showing on the surface of the fabric as well. You only would see the needle zigzag. And with something that's very lightweight, like 100 weight thread, you could use monofilament thread. Monofilament thread, though, as you know, can be a little bit temperamental on some machines, and some brands of it are more temperamental than others. So you would have to test it out. If you have a brand that works well on your serger and or sewing machine, fantastic, go ahead and use that. But some other alternatives, that's the Invisifil 100 weight thread. I'm sure some other companies also make something that light. You could use a bobbin thread, as long as it kind of blended in with your fabric. You could also use a lightweight embroidery thread too. If even using Serger cone thread, which isn't very thick, it really does show up quite a bit on fabric with this particular technique. And that's why, in all honesty, if I were doing rows across, say, a bodice of something, that type of thing, I would use my sewing machine, honestly. But I also think that using a rolled hem stitch to attach beads on the edge of fabric, fabulous. It's very discreet, it's beautiful, it's quick, it's clean, it's really nice to do, and I'll show you that today. So I'm going to go to my machine, and hopefully my camera is not going to give me a fit, and it will show my image live. Right before I went on, I was having a problem with that. So let's hope. Oh, yep, it is. Okay, we're all right. Okay, so I have got my machine threaded up for a 3-thread flat lock. It is stitch number 6 on the L890. Let me go, and my needle thread just came unthreaded. I have my right overlock needle in, and I have the 100 weight thread in my needle as well as my upper looper. And actually, I have it in all 3 spots. I have it in the upper and lower looper and the needle. That's right, I forgot that. And let me rethread my needle. I find the machine stitches much better when there's thread in the needle. All right. And I'm going to put my presser foot on. Just snaps on like any other presser foot. I'm going to get this thread. Now, you will notice that I have my knife locked down. My stitch width dial is on 7. So I found that that gave me the flattest stitch when I pulled it. I have a reel of beads that are sitting right in my trim bin right down here, and so I haven't cut them off. I'm going to just pull a couple of feet of that free. I'm going to put this in. I'm just going to slide it in under, and I've got a couple of inches in back of the presser foot. I'm going to put the presser foot down. And what I'm going to do is, to start with, I'm going to hold this in back. And just as I said, I want to make sure that the beads are secured with a few stitches. So I'm going to take a couple of stitches right now and make sure that everything is secure. That's the Bernina burp, in case you're not familiar with that. Okay, and those are secure. Now, let me just show you what I did on my fabric. I just cut a small piece of fabric, and with a friction pen, I drew 3 lines on this. And what I'm going to do is I am going to fold this along the line with wrong sides together. This line is going to be my guide for where the beads are going to go. And that's kind of arbitrary. The only thing I would say is that if you're doing multiple lines of beading, you do have to make sure that they're far enough apart that they're not going to fall under the foot, because the foot needs to be down completely, just like any other time on your machine. So I am going to fold this along the first line. And let's go back to the machine. Okay. I think I could, let me see if I can lighten this up just a smidge. I think it's a little bit dark. I think that's a little bit better. Okay. So I have got this folded, wrong sides together. I've got my line as my guide. And what I'm going to do, even though my knife is down, I'm still going to keep an eye on that and make sure that the fold kind of skims along exactly where the knife would be cutting. The reason I put this down, the knife down, is because if I were doing this on a project and I didn't want to nick the edge of the fabric fold, then just to be on the safe side, I'd have that knife down. But again, when the knife is down in overlock mode, for people who are a little bit newer to serging, you have to be very careful and aware of where that fabric is traveling. You don't want it to slide so far to the right that it's going to get caught in that upper looper. That would be a problem. But I know most of you would be very careful with that. So I'm going to put, once again, just like always, I don't have my knee lift in. And now you can see that my when I lifted the presser foot, my beads kind of wandered off to the right, and my presser foot isn't all the way down. So let me get that back on track. There we go. Okay, so that's that. And I'm going to hold the beads from the back for just a minute. My stitch length, let's talk about stitch length before I start. I forgot to mention that. When you're doing beading, depending on the size of your beads, that's going to help determine the length of your stitch. I would say these beads are absolutely no bigger than 3 millimeters. I have my stitch length on 3. also, the bigger the bead, the longer it is, or the bigger the bead itself is, the longer your stitch is going to have to be so that it can travel from one space between the beads to the next one. So keep that in mind. And if you're buying beading by the yard, buy extra so that you can practice with it to get all of your settings correct. All right? Okay, so let's go back to this. I didn't want to forget to say that. Okay, so we've got this, and I am going to start this off. I kind of like to keep the beading kind of near the right edge of the presser foot, right against there, and I like to go a little bit more slowly because it is a specialty technique. And once it gets going on the fabric, it should be good. There we go. And just make sure your fabric travels straight as you're going. And sometimes I think it's good to help it along over here. Oops. Oh, I think this is just my thread tail's getting hung up here. Hang on a second. Whoops, I think I just broke the needle thread. Hang on. I did. Well, that's very nice. Let me just raise this up and we'll start again. But, oh, well, actually, I can just show you what I've got so far. Pull this out. I made a bad guess on what was caught. So, hang on. No, I didn't. Hold on. I think, go back. I took my beads off. They weren't secured. Let me just make sure everything is threaded up correctly. Here is my little reel of beads, and that's sitting right in my trim bin. Hang on a second. Let's see what the issue is. My lower looper is threaded. We're fine with that. I think it was just my needle thread that I broke. So, hang on just a second. Let me rethread that again. These are all the fun things that you get to see up close and personal that happen with all of us. Suzanne says, hi from North Carolina. Thanks for joining us. Okay, and I have my light shut off on the machine, so I don't, because it glares with the camera. So let me see if I can get this threaded without the lead on. There we go. This thread is so lightweight. It's so delicate. It's really a little bit more to manage than typical Serger comb thread. But let's see if we're all set to go on this. I'm going to put my trim bin back. You can see that right here. Just going back. I'm going to put my little reel of beads back in there, and I like to pull a little bit of length just to make sure. Let me just make sure my stitch looks okay. I think we're back in business. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put this down. I'm going to take a few stitches. You want to make sure, another thing too, is your beads need to be to the right of your needle. This is almost the same idea as when you're doing something with the cording foot with wire edge ribbon, or just doing some thicker cording that you're covering. So let me, okay, we're good. All right, let's try it one more time and see how we do. Fold it. And this time, let me make sure all my threads are not caught. And see, when I put my presser foot up, because I took those few stitches in the beading, they're not going to come sliding back out at me. They might move a little bit, but they're not going to fall out. So getting this, get this back under the presser foot. Put the presser foot down. And let's give it a go again. And I don't have my needle lift. I missed my needle lift when I did these. Okay. All right. So let's try it now. I think you can all see it. My beads are right on top. Over. And I'm not seeing puckering on the fabric, but if you are still getting a little bit of puckering, you could always drop your differential feed a little bit. Okay, so we're off. So what I'm going to do is I've got my presser foot up. I am pulling my threads and beads, cut it, and I'm going to clip this right here. And let's go to the table and see how this looks when you open it up. Okay, there's the one that I already did that earlier. Okay, so here is the one that I just completed. Right here. Here's what it looks like. There's a smidge of puckering, but I think I could, that might have been operator technique as well. Cut these threads, get them away. So now, just like when you're doing any kind of a flat lock, we're pulling the fabric flat and open. And I'd give that a press. I think that would work out any of those little puckers. And when you press it also, you'll get rid of that line because it is a friction pen that's heat generated. So there is that with the 3-thread Flatlock. Stitch number 6. Stitch length was on 3. Stitch width was on 7. And you get a nice result. But you can see that with that lightweight thread, it's pretty discreet on this type of fabric. But again, my first choice for beading on a surface probably would be using a zigzag stitch on my sewing machine. That's my honest opinion. We can do one more line of it before I'll show you along the bottom edge with a rolled hem. But before I do, are there any questions from anyone? Does anyone have a comment, or has anyone done this technique before and have a different way of doing something? Feel free to jump right in and say so. And I'm always up for suggestions to make something better. As I've said a million times before, I'm not a my way or the highway person. If somebody's got a better way to do it, I am in there for that. So I'm not seeing any comments from anyone. All right, so let's do another line of this and see if we get the same results or maybe even a little bit better with practice. So we're going to do the same thing. Now, I will say that when you're doing this, and if you're doing multiple lines, with these lightweight threads, make sure that everything is set to go, and you can see how that thread pulled out of the needle. So let me just re-thread that. I'm getting lots of practice on camera with this. When I was getting set up last night, I had threads all over me from doing this so many different times. through the eye. And these very fine threads, make sure that your loopers are still threaded as well, because sometimes when you cut the thread, it sort of bounces back, and it's still in my lower looper, still in my upper looper. So we're in business. Okay. And everything back. Pull off a little bit of this. And now this is going to be the same thing all over again for the next line. I'm holding it in back, put my presser foot down, and I want to take a few stitches to secure the beads. Okay. Now I'm going to fold my fabric along the second line and do the exact same thing. I'm going to slide that in, reposition those beads in that little tunnel on the back of the foot. Okay. And let's go one more time and see how we do. And even though I'm holding the bead strand from the back of the foot, behind the foot, I should say, don't pull on it, because I think that encourages puckering. So just help it along, but don't pull on it. Okay. I am going to pull this out. Pull these threads a little bit more. Cut them. And snip this. And let's take a look at this under the table camera as well. Okay. Here is my second line of stitching. I think this one came out better, a little bit less puckering. So let's pull this open. There's my first line. And just like any flat locking, you just pull those edges to flatten out the stitches. And actually, that looks really nice. And then sometimes I take my finger and kind of flip the beads to the side just so that they sit straight on the fabric. But let me turn it this way and you can see. But, you know, this is what I'm talking about with this technique. There is a little bit more show of the threads, which to me, I would not love on a garment, quite honestly. If I were doing this on some, like a Halloween costume, would I care? No. But if I were doing this on something super dressy, this would not be my first choice, honestly. But it is a possibility to do it like that. And it is very secure, I will say that. So there's the second line. Now, Vanessa said she's had her $8.90 for just a week. Oh, I'm so glad. Oh, you're welcome. And you got your thread fusion. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let me go back to my face camera. Okay, good. So those are 2 lines, and you can do as many lines, obviously, as you want for whatever design you're working on. So, but the other thing that I think is absolutely spectacular with beading is attaching it to the edge of fabric, like on a hem or the edge of a sleeve. You can even go around a neckline very cleanly with a rolled hem. And I would probably still use a lightweight thread that's very discreet, because when you see the rolled hem with this, it's amazing. In fact, let me just show you a sample. I should have grabbed it before. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can grab it. This is one that I did as a comparison. One side I used Serger cone thread, the other one I used the 100-weight thread, and you will definitely see the difference. Let me move these things out of the way and show you the one with the Serger cone thread first. Okay, so you can see this, and the thread is very obvious. The stitching is quite obvious. Let me bring this down even closer. Okay, so you can see here is your Serger cone thread. Then on the opposite side, I used the 100 weight, and you can see it almost disappears. So the thread weight does make a difference. And of course, just like with any kind of sewing, you probably would want to match your color as closely as possible with whatever you're doing. But on that note, I will say, if you only have some neutral colored specialty threads, I would go for something along the gray or taupe line. And taupe is amazing because that color combination blends in the brown and the gray together, and it kind of disappears on a lot of different color fabrics. And I was on a webinar with some other sewers who were more quilters than I am, and one of them mentioned that using a thread that was kind of a grayish lavender disappeared. And I happened to have the color thread that she was talking about, and I tried it out, and you know what? She was right. And you wouldn't think that a very muted lavender would disappear, but it does pretty well on certain color fabric. So that's another possibility. So what I'm going to do is I am going to reset my machine from a 3-thread flat lock, a narrow flat lock. And again, on the 890, that's stitch number 6. I left all of my tensions on the ones that, the preset ones, the default ones. I think, let me look. I took a photograph last night when I was doing some testing. And let me just see something. I might have... I did lower my needle tension down. The default setting on my needle, let me go to my screen. The default setting is 2. I'm just looking at the picture I took, and this is a great tip. And I did lower it to 1.3, and that allowed me to pull the fabric flat, which made a little bit of a difference. So I did lower that, but today I left it on the default settings for you to see. But I think if I were doing this on a natural project, I would drop the needle tension down. And that would be something that you need to test on your own machines. Different machines have different nuances. You've heard me say that. So on this one, I dropped this one down to 1.3, and you can see, let me see if I can get that exposure a little less glary. Ooh, that's really dark. Well, you can see that that number goes to yellow, and it's 1.3, and that tells me that it's not on the default setting. But just to get it back, all I have to do is tap it, and it goes back to the default setting. So I am going to go to stitch number 8, which is my rolled hem stitch on this machine. And I'm going to, actually, I don't need to rethread anything because I have my right needle in, my upper looper, lower looper. So all I have to do, let me show you what I'm doing, is I'm going to select stitch number 8. Now, here are my default settings for my stitching. That lower looper is higher. It's on 5.5, right needle and upper looper are on 4. But I actually like my rolled hem to have a higher setting on the lower looper. I think it gives me a nicer look on that. So I like to crank my lower looper up to 7. And I do that all the time with stitching. So those are the settings that I use. Now my stitch length is 1.2. Because I'm doing this beading, I need a longer stitch. So I'm going to increase that stitch length, and let's bring that up. Let's bring it up to about 3 for this and see how we do. Crank out. So now you can see the settings that I'm using. And let's see, Vanessa. Oh, okay. So no questions so far on anything else. All right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to use the edge of the same piece, and let's do a rolled hem, and let's get rid of these little threads that I had to cut off on that first run. And I'm going to actually trim off the rest of these too. I don't want anything to get hung up in those, in the hemming. Okay. Throw these all away. Okie doke. Okay, so we still are using our beading foot because we need that to go through nicely. And again, it's the only way that the foot would be able to go down, the presser foot would be able to go all the way down. So let's do that. I'm going to put my little roll of beads right in my trim bin. And same thing, I'm just inserting it in the presser foot. I'm going to pull these threads though, or thread tails a little bit longer just so they don't pull out. Make sure everything's all set here. I see 2 threads. I don't see my third one. Hang on. There it is. Now, because I'm going to be on the edge of the fabric, I am going to activate my cutting knife. And let me bring my stitch width. I'm going to lower that a little bit or narrow it down a little bit and bring it down to 6. I think that should be good. I'm going to put the beads in one more time, put my presser foot down. I'm just going to take a few stitches to secure it, and let's go so that you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so doing this exactly the same, even though we're on a different stitch. And when the knife is up, you can see how this little piece on the beading foot is protecting the beads from sliding in front of the knife and chopping it off. So that's another design feature on that foot. Now I'm going to get a nice clean edge on my fabric. So I'm going to trim off some of that edge. And let's see how we do. I think we're good to go. Let me see if that exposure looks a little bit glary. I think that's a little better. Let me see if I can bring it in a little bit closer. Sorry about that. I hope nobody's getting seasick looking at that. Okay. All right, so let's do that. I'm holding the beads, just securing them in back of the foot to keep them smooth. I've secured them. You can see they're not moving too far. And I'm going to trim off a little bit of the edge of the fabric. Okay, put my presser foot up, pull my beads out. Now, as I said before, I would not do flat locking to attach the beads on a surface. I would definitely use the rolled hem stitch though for doing them on a hem or an edge. So let's go over to the table camera. Let me just cut off my extra threads here. And take a look. And I would also give that fabric a nice press too. So let's look at this underneath this camera. Let me pull it in just a little bit more. It's too high. You can see. And with that lightweight thread, it almost disappears. But on a hem, especially on the bottom edge of a skirt or a jacket or a dress, would it be super critical to if the thread was a little bit more prominent? Probably not. But if you think about beading around, say, the edge of a neckline or up higher on a garment that's closer to eye level, using that lightweight thread can make a big difference. And you can see this, it really just about disappears on this, which I think is a really nice look. So, oh, Gypsy's asking, do I keep the stitch finger at on the overlock or R? Oh, I actually, you know what? You're very good catch. I didn't move that down. I should have had it on the R. So I have another piece of fabric. Let's redo this again. Thank you, Gypsy. See, this is why it's good to have people here to help. We all learn and help each other, and I forgot about doing that. So, thank you very much. That was a very good catch. You get a gold star, Gypsy. And typically, I don't have to rethread my machine or needle as much, but it's because it's just the nature of the lightweight thread. There's nothing wrong with the machine or the thread. It's just the nature of it. So let's do it one more time correctly. I'm going to pull this out, get this under, make sure I've got my upper looper, lower looper thread. I just want to be sure that that lower looper is still threaded. Hang on. Yes, it is. Pull that tail a little bit longer. Okay. Now I think we're in business. So what I've done, just in case you're wondering, let me just show you this, just so that this will be a little bit of Serger Essentials. Okay, so Gypsy said, did I leave my presser, my stitch finger up, or did I bring it back to the rolled hem setting? So let me show you what she was talking about, because that was very observant. On my machine, I can bring my stitch finger up for a wider stitch, but I can also bring it back for a very narrow stitch, like a rolled hem, and that's what I should have done. Can you see it going back and forth? It's right here. So I should have had it on R that first time around. So, okay, so let's redo this. Gypsy, you've got an eagle eye. Well, I just get my needle thread where I want it to be so it doesn't get chopped off. Okay. Get my beads in here. And let me take a few stitches. going on here. Oh no, it's okay. All right, okay, good. All right, this time we'll do it actually correctly. So this is a different piece of fabric. And actually, I made sure I had a couple of different pieces of fabric in case I did screw something up. So never hurts to be prepared. Alrighty. Okay, so let's do this one more time without the stitch finger. Okay. Okie dokie. All right, this is looking even better than the first one, so hold on. And let's go over and take one more look at this on the table. And I would give this a press afterwards. Pressing will make a difference. Okay, so here we are with the rolled hem done correctly. And you can see that even up close with this camera, that thread is just about invisible. So a really fantastic tip for doing stitching. And you can see, I would love to have this on any kind of a project. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful hem. Very discreet. The stitching looks fantastic. But let's look one more time at what it looks like with Serger comb thread. Not terrible, but would I prefer this or this? Definitely this. So the weight of your thread and also the color can make a difference. Oh, hi Teresa from Santa Cruz, yay. And thank you, Gypsy, for that. So that is beading with flat locking. Now in the book, Teresa, who was the one who requested that I show this technique, she had sent a picture of the page in the book. So I did the exact same thing with a 3-thread flat lock. Have I tried it with a 2-thread flat lock? Not yet. I think I might like it better, but sometimes there are cases when a 3-thread may pull a little bit flatter with something like beading than a 2-thread. But I'm going to try it out and I can let you know what my results are with a 2-thread flat lock. And again, you're putting less thread into each stitch, so it may be a little bit more discreet than the 3-thread. But that is that information for today. Nothing else going on. Oh, I know there's one thing I wanted to mention, and I'll probably be doing a tip clip on this. If you have the L890, there is now a little attachment, that, not really an attachment, I think it's just something that you can bring to your technician, or they would have it in your local dealer, that will secure the screws in the L890 and the original L890 QE. And again, as soon as I get mine done, I will do a tip clip on that. I haven't had a chance to get it over. But what that does is it will prevent you from over loosening the screws that hold your needles in the needle bar and having them fall out and disappear because they're so tiny to begin with. I will say on the brand new L890 QEs, they are already installed in the machine. So it's not an issue if you just bought a brand new L890QE. But it's just a way that it secures the needle screws from ever falling out of the machine. And I know sometimes people think they have to loosen those screws all the way to put needles in or out. And sometimes they over loosen them, they fall in the machine, never to be seen or heard from again. So this new little fix will eliminate that problem completely. So Teresa, you're welcome. I hope you enjoyed it. And you know, that brings me to my closing point. Teresa had requested that I do this today. If there is a technique or a stitch or something else or a foot that you would like to see in these YouTube lives, I will be very happy, if I can, to help you with that. So if you have a request to see something or a request for a tip clip also that is pre-recorded, let me know. I want to know what you need more information about or more help with, or seeing it done live rather than still photographs in a book or just a post. So I'm very open to hearing what you would like to see, and sometimes it might be something I've never done before. For instance, what I did with today's technique, I had never bothered trying flat locking with beads. So Teresa, thank you very much. I can add that to my arsenal of techniques. But if everybody is all set, I think we're good to go. I'm looking forward to going up to Aurora. I will also be at Pine Needles Quilts in Rochester, Minnesota in a couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to that. I had been invited to go last August and couldn't go. My niece was getting married, so I thought that had to take precedence, and I was delighted to go to her wedding. It was beautiful. And anyway, also, my brother-in-law was having a cardiac procedure done today, so please keep a good thought for him, too. And I will see you all again live on YouTube in April. And April, as you know, is National Serger Month, so stay tuned for maybe some special deals and projects or whatever. And again, if you've got a suggestion or a request to see something, I'm all ears. So thanks for joining me today. Happy sewing and serging. Everybody stay safe and take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And we will see you again in April live. Thanks. You're welcome, Gypsy, Diane, Mary, Teresa. Thanks. Bye-bye.